Hello and good morning, friends of Sudoku. Well, it's morning here. It's 5:30. I hope that you're all doing well where you are. Welcome to an expert level Sudoku by sudoku.com. I pulled up a website I like to use to enter my own Sudokus because I like this user interface slightly better than many other user interfaces online, and it works well with my recording software. So we have not so many givens, and we wouldn't expect to have many since this is an expert level Sudoku. Only 23 givens or so, but let's see how we do with this one. We can find an 8 for this cell because of the 8 here, here, and the 8 down here. This cell must be an 8. And now that we have found this 8, we scan left and we see that this cell cannot be an 8 because of the 8 already present in the column, and that makes this cell an 8. So we are off to a good start. So we have to be a little creative here, I think. This 6 blocks these two cells from being a 6, doesn't it? And this 6 blocks these 3 cells. Therefore, we know now that a 6 for this column will have to go in one of these 2 cells. And since we already have a 6 in this column, we now need to find a 6 for column 7. And since it obviously cannot go in these 2 cells nor in this cell, it must go in this cell here because of the 6 already present in the row. A little long-winded, I know, but once you do enough of these grids, you know how to look for these patterns and you find them pretty easily, I think. As usual, I'm just mentioning things as I come across them. The 2 here and the 2 here will force a 2 in one of these cells here. And that's, oh yeah, well, I can see a 4 here and a 4 here. So of course this cell must be a 4. The 1 here will force a 1 into this cell or into this cell. That means that we need to put a 1 in this cell because we need a 1 for this row. And it clearly can't go here because of the 1 already present in the column. So this is a 1. And here's a little bit of logic, I think. Let's see. One of these 2 cells will have to be a 1, and therefore this cell can't be a 1, and this cell can't be a 1, and that gives us an easy 1 for this cell. And now these 2 cells can be 1s, and these 2 cells can be 1s. So they are forming a beginning of an X-wing. I don't know if that will lead to anything at all, but it's something that I will now have to keep in mind. There's only one cell in this row 2 that can take an 8 now. And this cell can't because of this 8. And the 8 here and the 8 here block these 2 cells from containing an 8. Therefore, the 8 will have to go here. And because we have the 7 in this corner, we know that a 7 for this column will have to go here or here in one of these 2 cells. And since we now have blocked columns 8 and 9 from containing a 7, this is the only place that we can place a 7 for the row. And now we have this pattern of a 2 and a 7 in these 2 cells and a 2 and a 7 in these 2 cells. And they force a 2 and a 7 to go in these 2 cells. So this cell and this cell, they will have to share a 2 and a 7. And since these 2 now have to be a 1 and a 9, and we have this 3, we know that 9 cannot go in any of these 3 cells, and nor can a 3. So this cell and this cell they have to be a 3-9 pair. And that leaves a 5, 6, and an 8 for these three cells. We can't place them at the moment, but at least now we know a little bit about where they're going to go later on, if we get as far as that, of course. Of course, we should neglect to input the last number here, which is going to be a 9, of course. And because we have the 2 here that blocks this cell, and we have this 2 that blocks this cell, we know that one of these two cells will have to be a 2. And since we already have a 2 in this row, we need to find a home for a 2 for this row 7. And the only place it can go, of course, now is here. And now we've got this 9 and we've got this 9, and that leaves only this cell for a 9. And now that we have this 7, we know that one of these two cells will have to be a 7, and therefore a 7 for this row will have to go in one of these three cells. And we are noticing that the 5 will have to go in one of these two cells, won't it? Because we just established that this cell will have to be a 3 or a 9 along with this 3 or a 9. So a 5 is forced into one of these two cells. And it just occurred to me that one of these two cells also will have to be a 3. So we got a 3, 7 here because we got the 3 that blocks these two cells, right? So these two cells have to be a 3 and a 7. And therefore, these two will have to be a 4 and a 5. Unfortunately, the remaining 1, 6, and 8 that we would need to complete this column, we can't place them at the moment, but it's something that we'll keep in mind. Of course, the ghost 4 here and the 4 here and this 4 over here will put a 4 in one of these two cells. Again, something we'll just keep in mind. So when we encounter this possibility the next time, we'll just know where to put the 4. Now remember how we said that these three cells will have to be a 5, 6, and an 8 in some order. We also have a 6 already in this row. So we need to find a home for a 6 in this box, since it won't be able to go here because of that ghost 6 here, and it cannot go in one of these two cells, nor in this cell here because of the 6 here and the 6 here. This is now where we have to place a 6. So this is now a 3 or a 9, and this is a 3 or a 9. And because we found this 6 here, we can combine it with the 6 here and the 6 in the bottom row and find the home for a 6 in this row 7, like so. And now that we scan right, the 6 here and the 6 here occupy these two rows. We need to find a 6 for row 8. And because of the 6 up here, this is where the 6 must go. And now we have a severe constraint for this cell, don't we? We can't have a 1, a 2. We can have a 3, but not a 4 or a 5 or a 6 or a 7, 8, or a 9. So it's got to be a 3. And now we know that the other digit that would have to go here is going to be a 3 because of the 3 here. And we already know that these two cells will have to be a 4 and a 5. So a 3 will go here or here, and therefore here and here. And the other digit, remember, was a 2. We got a 2 here and here. So these two digits now have to be a 2 and a 3, leaving a 4 and a 5 for these two cells. And since these two have to be a 2 and a 3, these three empty cells now will have to be a 4, 5, and a 7. And these two cells can't be a 4 because of the 4 up here. So the 4 goes here. And these are now a 7 and a 5. And we actually know which goes where, because the 7 here forces a 7 into one of these cells, and therefore this cell must be a 7 and this must be a 5. And remember earlier we said that one of these two cells would have to be a 5. Let me recap. We got a 5 already in this row, and we know that these two cells have to be a 3 and a 9. So a 5 will have to go up here somewhere. And therefore, a 5 for this row 3 will have to go here or here. But now that we found this 5, we can enter a 5 here like so. So now this cell also becomes a 3 or a 9 along with this cell and these two. These are still a 2 and a 7, right? We might as well enter the missing digit here, which is a 5, leaving a 1 and a 4 for these two cells. And there's a 1 already in the row, so of course the 4 will have to go here and the 1 here. And that takes care of the 4 and the 5 we had here, doesn't it? Here's a 5 and here's a 4 for you. And as we recall, I'm sure these two cells, they must be a 1 and a 9. There's a 1 now in this column, and therefore the 9 goes here and the 1 here. Now we are left with a 3 and a 7 for these two cells and a 2 and a 9 for these two. Sometimes these more difficult puzzles tend to start out easy and then they become difficult. And sometimes it's the other way around. I don't really know yet how to gauge this one. So we need to find a 4 and a 5 for this column. And since there is already a 4 and a 5 in this box, a 4 and a 5 can't go here. And we have a 4 and a 5 also in this box. So a 4 and a 5 can't go here. And finally, we do have a 4 and a 5 in this row that can see this cell. So these two cells will have to be a 4 and a 5. Not immediately helpful, but perhaps a little later. I think I found a remote pair, didn't I? These two cells have to be a 2 and a 9 because they're the only two digits missing from this column. Now let's look at this cell. It cannot be a 1, but it can be a 2. And it cannot be a 3, nor can it be a 4 or a 5 or a 6 or a 7 or an 8. So this cell is also a 2 and a 9. Now we have a 2 and a 9 here and a 2 and a 9 here. Let's look at these three empty cells. What must they then be? Must be a 4, 5, and a 7. And again, that doesn't help me. But I found a 2, I think. The 2, of course, for this row can't go in this cell. And it can go in this cell because of the 2 here. It cannot go in this cell because of the 2 down here. And one of these two cells will have to be a 2 because there's a 2 already that blocks this cell. So one of these two cells will have a 2, will have to be a 2. So where can we place now a 2 in this row? The only place it can go is here. Having found this 2, we now can find the next digit, which is going to be a 6. These two 6s block these 5 cells, and this 6 blocks these 3 cells, and that means that this cell must be a 6. And now we get on a little bit with the 3 empty cells up here. Remember, they had to be a 5, 6, and an 8. We now have a 6 in this column and in this column here, so this must be a 6. And because of the 5 down here, this cell must be a 5, and therefore the remaining cell here must be an 8. And that, of course, gives us a 1 for this cell. And now we have found a 1 for this column as well. And remember how we said that these two cells will have to be a 2 and a 9? That means that this cell can't be a 9. And because of the 9 here, neither can this cell here. Therefore, the remaining cell in this row is going to be a 9. And now we can resolve the 3 and the 9 we had going up here and here and here and here, like so. And the 9 here and the 9 here gives us a 9 for this cell, doesn't it? And the 9 here and here now resolves the 2 and the 9 we're waiting to resolve here. And we remember now one of these two cells will have to be a 2. And because we have a 2 in this row and in this row already, we know it's going to be this cell right here. And that leaves this cell, and it has got to be a 3. The 3 here and the 3 here gives us a 3 for this column. And the other digit that we were missing, of course, is a 7. It goes here. And remember how these two are supposed to be a 2 and a 7? And since we only have 2 empty cells in this column now, and this one, for obvious reasons, can't be a 7, it therefore must be a 2. And the 7 will go up here, and the 2 here. And remember the last digit here? It was a 3. These are still a 3 and a 7, but we have a 3 now in the column, so we can enter a 7 here and a 3 here, like so. And the 7 here now, and this 7 forces a 7 into this cell, and therefore into this cell over here. These cells are still a 4 and a 5, but the last empty cell in this column is going to be a 5, and that resolves the 4 and the 5 we were waiting to find here. This cell now must be a 4, and this cell has got to be an 8. And we've done everything right, I think. It looks good. So this is how we can deal with an expert level Sudoku. I didn't grade it, sudoku.com did, and I don't know if they do that because of the relatively few givens that we get at the outset of the puzzle. But I think it was pretty manageable. There were no special points where I found it particularly difficult. Anyway, I do hope that you enjoyed it and that you will be back for more soon. Thank you for watching, and bye for now.